Hello everyone, welcome back again to my channel. My name is Abimbola. Today's tutorial will be the sewing part of this beautiful dress that we drafted the last time. So if you are yet to see the pattern drafting tutorial of this dress, the link will be in the description below. Now, to everyone who has subscribed to my channel, I say a very big thank you. Thank you for subscribing. And to those who are yet to subscribe to this channel, please do well to subscribe now. Also like the video and share with friends. Turn on your notifications so that whenever I upload a new tutorial video, you will be notified. Now let's get into today's tutorial. So from the pattern drafting tutorial, this was where we stopped the last time. We already transferred our patterns to fabric, and I went ahead to add up my seam allowance half inch for joining, and on the sides I added 1.5 inches for the side seam. So I have half inch on all other parts, but for the sides I added 1.5 inches. So here I also have all the patterns for the inner yoke transferred to the fabric. I'm making use of a net here, so I transferred all and also added my seam allowance. Here is my sleeve and also the sleeve for the inner yoke and the flare part of the sleeve. So this is my skirt. It's actually a straight skirt. I drafted that off camera, but this is the pattern, what it looks like, my front and my back for the skirt. Now the part I will be starting with, that's for the sewing, is the front pattern. So I will match up my center front and my side front together from the underbust. So here I already interfaced my fabric. You can see I have my wording on the fabric and also my paper stay. And from the half length towards the zigzag pattern at the hem of the dress, of the blouse rather, I also added an extra interfacing. So I used the paper stay, I doubled it at that part. So apart from the paper stay, you can actually make use of your hair stay. All you need to do is just to interface the whole of your fabric with your hair stay, and in that case you might not need to double your fabric at that point. Now I went ahead to pin down my underbust. I already gave that part a notch when I was cutting out my fabric. So I notched it on the center front and also on the side front. And that is what you see me pinning down. And the next thing I will do is to run my half inch stitching from my underbust to the top of the blouse. Now the next thing I'll do is to notch my sewing, and then from that underbust I'll flip it over to the other side, and from the underbust I'll also run my half inch stitching from the underbust to the hem of the blouse. Now I'm done with one side of my front, and then I'll repeat the same process on the other side, and then I will take it to this ironing table to open press my seams. Once I'm done sewing the other side and ironing my fabric, I'll repeat the same process for the lining. So this is my lining fabric. The same interfacing that was used on the lining was used on the main fabric, and also I used my wording for the breast area on both my lining and my main fabric. Now I'm done with my lining and the main fabric, and I've taken it to the ironing table to press open my seam lines for both the lining and the main fabric, and after pressing, this is what I have. Now I'll proceed to the back pattern, and here is my center back and my side back for the main fabric. So I'll be joining these two pieces together. So after joining, I'll repeat the same process on the other side of the back, that's for the main fabric, and also for the lining fabric I'll repeat the same process on the two sides of the lining. Now I have the fabric for the front, that's the main fabric, and the lining for the front, and I've gone ahead to press open both the lining and the main fabric. The next thing I will do now is to match up these two together at the neckline. That's the zigzag pattern at the neckline. I will make sure I match them together, ensuring that the two aligns properly. Now after aligning them properly, I went ahead to pin the two fabric together. That's my main fabric and my lining fabric. And the next thing I will do is to sew up my neckline. Now sewing up my neckline, I will ensure I follow through the zigzag pattern which I created on the neckline. So I will ensure I follow through the zigzag pattern which was created while we drafted this pattern. Now ensure that you properly follow through the zigzag pattern you created so that you don't end up losing the shape that you have at that neckline region. So at every point, I ensure I lift up my presser foot and then flip my fabric to the other side while my needle is actually inside of the fabric. So I sew up my zigzag like so, and then I repeat the same thing once I get to the sharp point on my neckline. So I'll lift up my presser foot and then repeat the same thing. So ensure that you follow through this sewing so that you don't end up losing your zigzag pattern for the neckline. Now I am done sewing down the front neckline. The next thing I would do is to sew up the hem line. That's the zigzag pattern on the hem of this blouse. So what I would do also here is to match up my zigzag patterns on the lining and also on the main fabric together. So I'll pin them down at each point. Now after pinning, I'll go ahead to repeat the same pattern which I followed through for the neckline. I'm going to repeat the same sewing pattern at the hem of this blouse. So I carefully followed through my pattern on the hem line. So you might want to ask me why the paper stay was not getting to the tip of my zigzag on the center front. Now I already exhausted my paper stay at this point, and because this fabric is actually for tutorial purpose, a subscriber, one of my subscribers here, requested that I put her through how to go about this, and hence the reason why I came up with this tutorial. So I already exhausted my paper stay, and since it's not for a client, I chose to just leave that part out. So ensure that your interfacing actually gets to all your areas, all the areas on your fabric. So you see the way I'm actually cutting that part, that sharp part. And also I'm also notching the sharp edges that we have on this fabric. So ensure that after you have sewn your zigzag pattern, you also need to notch those sharp edges and also cut out the sharp edges which are protruding out and notch the ones which are actually going in. I hope you understand the explanation. So with this notching, you have a relaxed zigzag pattern at the end of the day. If you don't give your fabric this needed notching, you might end up finding it difficult to pull out your zigzag pattern at the end of the day. So do well to notch and also cut through those parts which I showed in this video. Now guys, if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please show some love and support. Kindly subscribe to this channel, share with your friends, turn on your notification so that you get notified when I upload a new tutorial. Do well to support me. Subscribe please. Now let's get back into the tutorial. So I kept cutting out those sharp points also at the neckline. So it's not just the hem line, you also need to repeat the same thing for the neckline and also for the back pattern which has the zigzag pattern. So I'm done with the front. I'll go ahead now to close up the sides. So I went ahead to close up my sides, both the right side and the left side of this blouse. Once I was done closing up the sides, the next thing I would do is to flip my fabric over to the right side. So from my armhole, I dipped my hand in and I went ahead to pull my fabric, turning into the right side. So I noticed this part was sharp, so I went ahead to trim it and also pull out my fabric to the right side. So after turning, this is what I have. I already pulled it out at this point. Now for the back, I already joined all my side back and the center back together, both the lining and the main fabric. And what I will go ahead to do here is placing my lining on my main fabric. I'll also pin it down and then I'll sew through the zigzag which I created for the back, both the neckline and the one at the hem of the blouse. Once I'm done sewing up the zigzag pattern for both sides, I will go ahead to close up my center back, that is the zipper part, and also close up the side back. and I will go ahead to pull out my pattern, that's my fabric, from the armhole. I'll pull it out the same way I did for the front. I'll repeat the same thing for the back. And once I'm done, I will show us what we have. So in all, this is just like a repetition of what we did for the front. Now I have my back and my front already turned out, and I already closed up my zipper part of the center back, that's my zip allowance. And I already went ahead to shape my blouse. So I'll go ahead now to sew up my front and my back fabric together. I'll match them up together, and then I'll sew through and show us what we have afterwards. So this is it after joining the sides together. I will go ahead to open up my zipper allowance, and then I will fix my zip. Now I'm done with my zip, and I already measured what I have for my across front and my across back. And here is my off shoulder sleeve for the main fabric, that's for my Ankara fabric. Here is my off shoulder sleeve. So the next thing I will do is to attach this off shoulder sleeve to the main blouse. Now after attaching my sleeve to the main blouse, I'll go ahead now to work on the inner yoke. So I have the sleeve for the inner yoke and also the flare part of the sleeve. Now I'll go ahead and join the flare to the sleeve. And this is it after joining both together. Now I'll close up my sleeve at the side. I'll close up the side of my sleeve. Once I'm done with this, I'll repeat the same process on the other side of the sleeve. Now I'll be working on the front inner yoke. And this is it. Now working with the bust dart on the front inner yoke, I love to cut out the dart, leaving out half inch, which will be used for joining the dart legs together. So this is what you see me doing here. So in your case, if you don't wish to cut out the bust dart, you can actually leave it. It's not so necessary. You can just follow through your bust dart which you already created and hold that down. Now I'll go ahead to take out my pattern paper, and then I would sew my bust dart. So here I was done sewing the bust dart. I didn't know I wasn't recording at that moment. So you can see that the bust dart is closed. So the next thing I will do is to take out my pattern paper for my back pattern, and then I'll be joining the front and the back together at the shoulder. So I'll match up my front and my back together like so, and then I'll run my half inch sewing on the shoulder. So this is the shoulder joining. I'll repeat the same thing on the other side. Now I will match up my sleeve together with my net at the shoulder. I'm closing up the side now, so I'm fixing my sleeve at that point, and then I'll go ahead to sew down my sleeve and my bodice together. Now I will close up the side. Now for this sleeve, I actually did not sew up to my armhole part of the sleeve. I stopped halfway. So closing up the side, I will continue from where I stopped, and then I will take my sewing allowance and sew through from that point to the bodice. Now I'll repeat the same process on the other side of the fabric, and I'm turning it over here to see what we have. So this is how far we have gone with the inner yoke, and the same thing that was done at this point will be repeated on the other side of the fabric. So when I was done with the other side of the fabric, I went ahead to fix my invisible zip. And afterwards, I also went ahead to draft the pattern for my turtleneck. And this is what you see here. I cut out the turtleneck on the net which we used for the yoke. And then I went ahead to attach my turtleneck to the main fabric. And after going through all of this sewing process, this is the end result. Thank you all for taking your time to watch today's tutorial. Please do well to subscribe to this channel, like and share with your friends. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.